I'll sit down in my favorite rocking chair out here in my outdoor kitchen. My name is Mark Hubbs with Aerosgone Bullet Molds. Today we're going to be talking about lubricating Sharps carbine cartridges. This is a follow-on to a video I did a while back on making cartridges with the John Crossan cartridge crimper using the Aerosgone new model Sharps bullet. So stick with us and I'll show you how I do these for my cartridges. The way that I dip lube these bullets has one advantage over just a simple dip lube, and that I have a tool that will allow me to only cover the bullet from the top of the paper up above, up to the top grease groove. That way I use less lubricant. I don't get lubricant all over the nose of the bullet, which just makes it more messy on the range from firing. So we're going to go to the my melting pot here in a minute, and I'll show you how we do these. I'll have my pot on with a container that I keep my lubricant in, and it's actually just a tuna can, but it has to be deep enough that this tool will fit into as we dip them into the hot lubricant. And I use a what's called a Confederate mix of lubricant, 2 parts of beeswax and 1 part of tallow. I use beef tallow, and I just use a hot plate with a flat top that I can turn on very low that will melt my wax and or wax and lubricant mixture. You'll see a aluminum foil on top of it just to protect the surface from any drips or anything. So we'll go to the pot now and I'll show you how to do it. So here we have our hot plate. I've got the temperature set to about 1.5. I think that's just warm enough to keep my lubricant nice and soft and hot. And I think, as I said before, I always use a mixture of about two parts beeswax and 1 part beef tallow. And I'll be using, when I lubricate the cartridges, I'll be using this tool, which was actually designed by my friend Steve Sheldon. It's essentially a 45 HCP cartridge, been slightly belled at the top. I've soldered it to a piece of square wire. You solder it to anything to make a handle out of it. And you see it's an offset handle. And I will set the nose of the bullet in the cartridge on top of it, and then I'll dip it down to the top of the paper. And that way it will fill the grooves of the bullet, but it will not cover the entire bullet. And this can be used for any type of dipping cartridges or projectiles. You just have to have a holder that matches the O-gib, that covers the O-gib but leaves the grooves exposed for the dipping. So here we're going to put the first one in, and as you can see, it's a container that is deep enough that it can handle the tool and the cartridge. And there, as I take it off, hopefully you can see this, the lubricant comes up to right above the last band, but it does not cover the whole O-gib of the bullet. We'll put this back in the box and we'll do another one. This actually is a actual linen cartridge with a piece of linen that's provided by John Crossan. And I'll refer you back to my other video on using the Crossan tool for crimping these cartridges using the new model Sharps bullet. And here we'll do another one. Maybe it's a little bit closer. And I'll dip it down to basically the top of the paper. And as you can see, the grooves are all covered in grease, but the most of the bullet is left bare. And of course, that will save you lubricant. It will also make the bullets less messy when you use them later. Let's do another one. Of course, you have to have enough lubricant in a can that's deep enough for this, and I can tell you, I'm just about to the point where I'll have to add another block of lubricant. I'm being very careful to keep everything in frame on the camera. This would be going a lot faster if I wasn't worried about that. Oh, I forgot to mention, if you use a cartridge case of any size to make the holder, be sure to solder the bottom primer hole up, or your dipper will fill with lube also. I mentioned the lubricant recipe I use, which is 2 parts beeswax and 1 part tallow, and I call that the Confederate recipe because that's what is recommended, not in the Confederate Ordnance Manual, but Confederate correspondence to the various arsenals. That's what they recommend for just about all bullets, and that's because of a shortage of beeswax in the South. The Northern recipe was 8 parts beeswax and 1 part tallow, a much stiffer, harder lube that probably would persevere better in hot weather. But because of the shortage of beeswax, the recipe required a lot more tallow in the mixture. And another interesting thing is that because of the lack of good lubricant, they even invented a tool that matched the ogive of any particular bullet, and they would scrape the excess lubricant off the ogive of the bullet and try to put it back in the pot. That seems awful tedious, and I'm sure it was, but that tells you how concerned they were about the lack of lubricants in the South, especially beeswax. This is one I made out of linen. I know the linen itself is probably too large, but I've experimented with these before. This is really handkerchief linen or a lining linen for clothing. But I've tried it before and it burns up. It's just not nearly as fine and paper-like as what should be used on these cartridges. Oop, that one, pulled it out too soon, dipped the whole thing. That's what it would look like if you dipped it directly. I'll be making another video soon on preparing these boxes for Sharps carbine cartridges. I say preparing because I'm not making the box. I'm taking a pre-prepared box and altering it so it will take cartridges, and as you can see, they fit perfectly in there. So stay tuned for that one. Hope to have it out soon. Well, I hope that was helpful. That's the way I've been doing that for years, and thanks to Steve Sheldon to show me the trick with the dipper. But if you're interested in the new model Sharps bullet, you can go to my sales page. I'll put a link here. That's where I have about 7 or 8 different modes for sale for different historic weapons, black powder revolvers and carbines. And also, I'll put a link to my previous video on how to make cartridges with the new model Sharps bullet and the John Crossan crimper tool. So thanks again, and I hope you'll visit again sometime.